The 2021 second generation Toyota Venza that I'm in right now is a Toyota Harrier. Going back into the history of the Harrier, it came out in the late 90s. The Harrier was a crossover based off of the Lexus RX. First based off the Lexus RX 300, then 330. Then in the 2010s, it switched over being based off of the RAV4 platform. Well, you could say this is based off the RAV4 platform as well, but it has that Harrier DNA as a Lexus vehicle. Today, we're gonna find out if it's as good as a Lexus. Starting with the looks of the Venza, this thing is gorgeous. It doesn't look anything like the RAV4, on which it shares a lot of properties, like this engine, a hybrid setup, for example. But the Venza looks so unique. It doesn't have the macho masculine lines of the RAV4 and other Toyota products. The Venza is more of a sculpted art piece. And when my wife first saw it, she's like, yeah, you can trade in the Prius for that, right? But I totally agree with her. Like, this thing looks so beautiful compared to any other Toyota crossover. Now, when you look at the Lexus lineup, Lexus just unveiled the new NX, and the NX looks pretty good, but I don't know if it looks better than this Venza. But the NX is on another beast altogether with all of its powertrains and improved infotainment. But we'll get into the powertrain and the infotainment a little bit later. A couple things about the looks of this vehicle, the highlights and lowlights though, it's not perfect. For some reason here in the United States, you can't get fog lights. So you have these cutouts for fog lights on the front bumper, but you can't get that even as an option here in the United States. That's reserved for the more luxurious upper scale packages in the Harrier across the seas. The daytime running lights are stunning, and even the rear hatch design, how the Toyota logo kind of just floats out above nothing on its own little shelf, and the wraparound taillight design is just gorgeous. This vehicle looks like no other Toyota, and I love that fact because it is the Harrier, and the Harrier has always been a bit unique for the Toyota lineup. It's too bad we don't get the Harrier bird of prey logo that has been on every Harrier previous to this. I know it wouldn't fit here on the Venza, but man, if it was offered on the Harrier in Japan, you could probably order that and swap out the Toyota badge in the front for the iconic eagle-like, you know, we don't know, we have one Harrier here in the United States. I did some research before this review. We have one Harrier species in the United States that I'm aware of, and yeah, most people just aren't familiar with that sort of bird of prey, but man, is it super badass if we had that logo. Unfortunately, I don't think it's happening this generation. When we're talking about the interior of the Venza, this is also how it separates itself from the RAV4. The RAV4 is very utilitarian. It's kind of boring with the really big knobs that have funky rubber treading on them. This doesn't have any knobs, and I hate the fact that this doesn't have any knobs. I'm such a traditional automotive guy. I like my climate control knobs, which are going to have climate control knobs in the upper scale NX, and there's no volume knobs. So if I want to turn down the volume real quick, you can't do it. Another thing that I don't like about this setup is that it's glossy black and everything's touch sensitive, right? So you touch the temperature or the tune or the fan speed controls, and you leave fingerprints that messes up what it is pretty. Don't get me wrong, it's pretty, but functionality comes first, and this is not the most functional setup. The RAV4 has a much more functional setup, but in terms of aesthetics, there's no denying that it's a very beautiful interior. On the base LE, you get a 9-inch screen, but man, it is really nice having this 12-inch screen. And if we're going to talk about options here in this limited package, let's start with something that's unique and really freaking cool. This Stargaze sunroof is something that we don't see in any other Toyota or Lexus product that I'm aware of, outside of like maybe the Lexus LM300, which has privacy glass. You press this switch up here by the sunroof controls. Well, there are no sunroof controls because it doesn't open. So there's just one on this vehicle. And the glass turns from a milky transparent. It's not nearly as clear as a normal traditional sunroof, but when I press this button, I can see either outside the vehicle with that milky transparency, which it looks okay, but if I press it again, it blocks out nearly all the light. in a good way. It lets in just a little bit. Like what it does to the sun is it turns the sun into a burning ball of red, and it just hit me. You can gaze at the sun, which is a star, with this. I'm looking at it right now, and it's just a ominous red disc. So that's why they call it stargaze, maybe because I can look at the sun. Anyways, moving on. This thing has heated and ventilated seats. This one has heated steering wheel. You have 360 camera on it as well. I mean, it's loaded up, and in terms of interior design, it is very, very nice. You know, there's no wood in here. There's like plastic designed as to look like wood. The power button's kind of in a weird spot, but the seats are very comfortable. The armrest is super comfortable here in the middle. The back seat is pretty comfortable. It also gives you vents back there as well as quick charging points. The seats fold down, and in terms of cargo capacity, I'm going to the grocery store right after this. It's going to do just fine loading up the groceries. It's a hair smaller than the RAV4 in terms of cargo capacity, but that's kind of the trade-off you get with a heavily stylized rear end that's less boxy and more sculpted. Okay, it looks great on the outside. It looks great on the inside with reduced functionality, I would say. Now moving to how this car drives. Well, let's start with the powertrain. This has the same hybrid powertrain as the RAV4 hybrid, which is a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder. All-wheel drive is standard on this vehicle, and it has 219 horsepower. And fuel economy, I've just been driving it around quite a bit today. I'm averaging around 50 miles per gallon city driving. Am I driving it pretty conservatively? Yes, but I've also been stopping the vehicle a lot to get out to get footage of this really pretty Venza. So even with it idling a ton, I never turn off the car. I'm getting over 50 miles per gallon in this city trip. On the highway, you're gonna get probably closer to 35 to 40 miles per gallon, depending on how fast you're going. In terms of smoothness of the powertrains, around town, under light acceleration, it's very, very quiet, extraordinarily smooth. If I punch the throttle real quick, great traction. It doesn't have enough power to spin the wheels or anything. It is a little bit drony. It is much quieter, in my opinion, than a RAV4 with that 4-cylinder setup in that vehicle. Brake feel is phenomenal. You know, sometimes on hybrid vehicles, on the Toyota end anyways, like the Sienna hybrid I drove, the brakes on that were really strange at low speeds. This vehicle, the brakes, you can't even tell it's a hybrid. It just feels really good, very smooth, very linear. And the brakes are pretty strong overall. Visibility is really good, and this does have the heads-up display, so I can always see the speed limit, how fast I'm going, as well as like the compass is up there, which I typically take the compass off so you can customize it. And then you also have your power bar, which lets you know how economically friendly you're driving. A lot of you might be thinking, Kirk, this vehicle is redundant. Toyota doesn't need this vehicle. The RAV4 outsells it 10 times here in the United States. I think that's okay. I'm happy with choice. The fact that we have a Harrier in America is really, really cool. I know it used to be based off the RX, and this is a smaller vehicle nowadays compared to the RX, and that's why it no longer shares with the Lexus RX, because that vehicle has become too big overall. And since this vehicle is tailored majorly for the Asian market, especially Japan, they had to keep the same sort of parameters and size as the original RXs / the original Harriers. So in terms of luxury in the Toyota lineup, this is right at the top. You might be able to say that the Avalon is up there too. And then you're also begging the question, well, why does Toyota need to bring this vehicle here? Like I said, the RAV4 outsells it, and then you have this new Lexus NX that's coming out. Well, the NX is definitely taking a more driver-centric approach. It's going to be more luxurious as well. This is very luxurious, don't get me wrong, but you can't even get leather in this vehicle in the top trims. It tops out with Softex synthetic leather, so the NX will drive way more sporty. This is more of a luxury, soft, comfortable sort of ride, and I'm so happy Toyota brought it here. It is built in Japan. It is a Harrier, just the nameplate has been switched out and the steering wheel been brought over to the left side compared to the right-hand drive models in Japan. So I'm just so happy that Toyota has given us so many choices here. A lot of people would be excited at the fact that you can buy a Japanese-built crossover that's not a RAV4 Prime or the anemic and uninspiring CHR here in America. The vehicle for what it is nearly perfect. No fog lights doesn't help its case. A fairly loud tonneau cover that definitely adds to the noise and vibration of this vehicle. If they can just make that more Lexus quality, this vehicle will be more quiet over bumps. That thing is just not to the rest of the standards in this vehicle, in my opinion, that tonneau cover. In the pursuit of a clean aesthetic design in here, you give up the functionality of knobs, and that is not acceptable. The most important thing is functionality when it comes to user interface in this vehicle, and it doesn't have what I'm looking for in that regard. But I could still live with it, and in fact, maybe one day, who knows, I'll get one of these for my wife, because she does not like most crossovers, and the fact the moment she saw this vehicle, she said I could trade in the Prius. I think that speaks a lot for itself. So Toyota, thank you for bringing the Harrier to America. It's good to have choice. I doubt you'll give us a prime option of this anytime soon, because that's going to be encroaching on the Lexus NX 450h territory. For what it is, great fuel economy, comfortable, beautiful, built in Japan. The Harrier heritage of this vehicle, it's just cool. It's very cool. I don't know what else to say about this Harrier. I'll see you guys in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a wonderful day. Peace out.